Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes. To keep in touch with us, use our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which are all at Q and Review. That's CUEANDREVIEW. Or get in touch via information@qandreview.com. That's information@CUEANDREVIEW.com. Please like and share our podcasts and give us any constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, October 25. Nick Rogers says Golden Boy McIlroy restores some order with return to number one spot. You may have noticed that October has been pretty wet. Pulling open the curtains each morning and being greeted by a wearisome grey ceiling of overwhelming misery has been a bit like waking up in some dank Dickensian prison. It's been so damp, even the clouds that are throwing down relentless torrents have started to rust at the edges. In fact, the all-round moistiness is at such a level, this column just about had to be etched into papier-mâché. We could do with a little bit of respite to lift the morale, couldn't we? Thankfully, the world of golf can easily transport us to some distant land where the sky is blue and the sun is shining. And no, I'm not talking about the husband and wife autumn quake at Dunbar. Switching on the TV on Sunday night to see Rory McIlroy returning to the summit of the global order in shimmering South Carolina was a timely tonic. It also felt like something of a return to normality. Let's face it, the last few months at the top end of men's professional golf has been so stormy, you half expected the ongoing saga involving LIV Golf and the established tours to appear on the shipping forecast. Rather like glimpsing a port in the midst of a raging tempest, seeing McIlroy back as world number one is a comforting sight. I'm sure LIV Supremo Greg Norman doesn't think that, but there you go. McIlroy has been a strong voice for golf's traditional powers against the backdrop of rancour and recrimination in the game's civil war. This rise back to his rightful perch has emboldened his statesman-like standing. It's been quite a year for McIlroy, and in the wake of his successful defence of the CJ Cup, the 33-year-old offered a little insight into the transformation of his campaign. The healthy eating gurus in our midst always hiss that you are what you eat. In McIlroy's case, it was a case of what he didn't eat after a missed cut in the Valero Texas Open back in March. McIlroy explained, "I'd missed the cut and, for some reason, I couldn't get out of town that night. The hotel was busy, and when I rang down for room service, they said it would be 2.5-hour wait. So I'd basically missed the cut, gone to sleep on an empty stomach, and I was like, let's just wake up tomorrow and start again." At that stage, if you'd have told me I would be world number one by October, I would have asked you what you were smoking. It's just been a wild 6 months. It certainly has. After going to bed with no supper in San Antonio, McIlroy served up quite the eye-watering feast on his next outing and closed with a thrilling 64 at Augusta to grab second place in the Masters. From there he has been a golfer reborn. In the 15 events he has played since that missed cut in Texas, the 4-time major winner has recorded 3 wins and 9 top 10s. It's been a remarkably consistent run. The critics will mutter and mumble that he still hasn't ended a major championship drought stretching back to 2014. But, my goodness, He can't be far away. In this endlessly fickle, topsy-turvy game, of course, it's best not to make predictions about a player achieving this, that and the other, because as soon as you do that, they will inevitably not win this, they'll definitely not contend at that, and they'll possibly make a right old hash of the other. In this current surge of form, though, McIlroy looks the complete package again. For a while, the contentment he had found off the course, with the birth of his daughter in 2020, was not mirrored by contentment on the course, as the weighty burden of trying to rediscover his previous majesty often left his shoulders drooped at half-mast. As 2022 comes to a close, though, an energised McIlroy has new purpose. You never stop learning in this fascinating, flummoxing, infuriating, and occasionally rewarding pursuit. Even now, for instance, I'm still trying to heed that simple yet sage advice that implores me to keep the left arm straight and your eye on the earth of the ball. It's a highly technical, finely tuned game I play. McIlroy, meanwhile, will keep working away too in the never-ending quest for improvement. He said, "I never feel like I've figured this game out." And he echoed the sentiments of golfers in the world over. I don't think I will ever figure it out, but every day I wake up trying to get closer. McIlroy's transformation since Texas proves that every cloud has a silver lining. Now, if those clouds would just stop leaking. And another thing, she's still only 25, but Lydia Ko has enjoyed the kind of longevity that bungling UK Prime Ministers could not even begin to imagine. A decade after winning her first LPGA Tour title as a teenage amateur, Ko knocked off her 18th win on the women's stage in the BMW Ladies Championship. With 13 top 10s in 20 starts this year, it's not surprising that the Kiwi said, "This is probably the best I've played." Ko wants to retire at 30. There's plenty to add to the pension pot yet. Report by Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, October 25. Rangers paid tribute to ex-academy player following cancer diagnosis. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers have paid tribute to their former academy player Dylan Dykes after it was sadly revealed he has been diagnosed with cancer. The 26-year-old currently plays with West of Scotland Premier League giants Pollok. The former junior side announced that Dykes started undergoing treatment last week. A club statement prior to the Scottish Cup clash last night with Annan Athletic reads, "For those of you who are able to attend the match and for those who may be watching on television, you will see during the warm-up that all of the Pollok players will be wearing tops with a public display of their support for teammate Dylan Dykes. Unfortunately, Dylan has recently been diagnosed with cancer. His treatment started in the week before last, and despite that, he was at the match the following Saturday, supporting his teammates. Dylan continues to be a valued member of the team, and we look forward to him once again stepping onto the pitch in the black and white. It is a terrible reminder of the indiscriminate nature of cancer, and there will be many others around the game who have, are, or will be affected by cancer. But let's take a moment to wish Dylan, his family and friends well, as no one faces this alone. From everyone associated with the Pollok family, our thoughts are with you, Dylan." His teammates did Dylan proud with a fantastic 4-3 victory over the League Two side. They will now face Ayr United in the next round. Dykes came through the ranks at Ibrox, spending 10 years at the club. He departed in 2016 as he signed for Ross County. He then had short spells at Morton and then Stenhousemuir, before eventually joining Pollok this year. Rangers led the tributes to their former player, and in a social media post the club said, "We were saddened to hear the news about Dylan. We have spoken to him and his dad, and are pleased to hear he is making good progress. Everyone at Rangers sends our best wishes to Dylan for a full and speedy recovery." A Stenhousemuir spokesperson said, "We stand beside our friends at Pollok Football Club in their support for Dylan. Dylan made 15 appearances for the Warriors, and he, his family and friends are very much in our thoughts at this time, and we will support any way that we can." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 26. 3 burning issues as Celtic's European dream ends. Report by Ewan Payton. European dream officially over. It was always going to be a long shot to keep the Europa League dream alive. However, Celtic's 1-1 stalemate with Shakhtar Donetsk confirmed that Ange Postecoglou's men will not be playing in any European competition after Christmas. Already knocked out of the Champions League with 2 games remaining in the groups, the Hoops did still have an outside chance of reaching the last 32 of the Europa League. They had to beat Shakhtar and then Real Madrid in Spain, so not exactly the easiest of tasks. It wasn't to be though, as the Hoops were held to a draw by the Ukrainian outfit. It was another good performance by Postecoglou's side. They will be sure to learn from the experience ahead of next year. 2 up top. There were more than a few eyebrows raised when the team lines came through early on Tuesday evening. The major surprise from Postecoglou was that he opted to tweak his usual formation to accommodate both Kyogo and Georgios Giacomakis in his starting 11. This was the first time they had partnered each other up top from the start of a match. Postecoglou said prior to the game that they knew they had to win, so this inspired the call. It proved to be a successful one, with Giacomakis scoring the opener. The Greek slammed home from close range as he pounced on a loose ball to net his first European goal. Right place, right time. The duo linked up well in the second half, but Kyogo was easily foiled before going off a short while afterwards. Mudryk is top class. Sometimes you just need to admire the talents of others. In Mykhailo Mudryk, Shakhtar have an absolute star in the making. The 21-year-old is clearly destined for big things in the game. Still in the early days of his career, the Ukrainian attacker has already been linked with life-changing money moves to some of Europe's biggest clubs. Off the back of his performance at Celtic Park, as well as his showing in Warsaw in the first game, it's easy to see why. He boasts electric pace, as shown on several occasions as he turned away from his markers. He produced an outstanding finish to level the game for the visitors, with the ball flying past Joe Hart. His trickery and technical ability also shone through. He put the ball on a plate for Danilo Sikan to score the winner, but he missed the open goal. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 26. Club 1872 detail Dave King talks. Report by Chris Jack. Club 1872 members will have the chance to hear former chairman Dave King detail his concerns over the running of Rangers, and the Ibrox shareholders have extended an invitation to current custodian Douglas Park as the Light Blues board continue to blank the influential supporters organisation. Park and his hierarchy have refused to communicate with Club 1872 in recent years, as tensions between the two parties have escalated and the relationship has broken down. King remains committed to completing a multi-million-pound deal with the fan group that will see Rangers supporters significantly increase their shareholding in RIFC plc and give them a louder voice at Ibrox. And Club 1872 have offered Park the opportunity to answer concerns from fans as questions continue to be raised over Rangers' fortunes and direction, both on and off the pitch. A statement from Club 1872 read, "In March 2022, the Club 1872 board released a statement which was heavily critical of the executive management team at Rangers and their running of the club. Our view has not changed, and it is clear that concerns about the club's current trajectory are growing within the Rangers support. Since our statement, we have engaged privately and constructively with a number of other major shareholders regarding our concerns and those of our contributors. As a major shareholder, we have also attempted again to engage privately with the RIFC board on behalf of our contributors. The RIFC board continues to refuse to engage with Club 1872, as it has done since the moment Dave King departed as chairman over 2.5 years ago. We would welcome a reversal of that policy. Club 1872 functions in part to facilitate dialogue between the custodians of Rangers Football Club and the support. We strive to seek answers on behalf of our contributors and the wider support, and will continue to do so. We recently met with Dave King, who has a number of concerns of his own about the way in which the club is being managed. He has articulated some of those concerns publicly, but he has also informed us that they have increased following conversations he has had in recent weeks. He has indicated a willingness to speak directly to our contributors, as he did last year, about those concerns, his insight into the running of the club, and any other areas of interest to supporters. We believe it would be valuable for our contributors to hear from Mr. King and have the opportunity to question him directly on his views. In the interests of fairness, and to provide as many opportunities as possible for our contributors to hear different perspectives on the current position, we have also extended an invitation to Rangers chairman Douglas Park to meet with our contributors. We have informed Mr. Park that we will hold a contributor meeting at a time and date of his choosing between now and December, where he can engage with our contributors on the same basis as Dave King. As soon as we have set a date or dates for these meetings, we will inform contributors. The meetings will be recorded and made publicly available to all of our contributors and the wider support. We will also shortly be holding our annual contributor meeting, with details to follow. Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, October 26. Martin Hannon says Scottish rugby needs investment across the board to continue growth. Though it might be wise to wait until after the men's autumn tests, the time is fast approaching for a big debate on the future of Scottish rugby. And while I am reluctant to say there is a panacea for all our sports ills, and they are legion, I have no doubt that cold, hard cash will go a long way to solving problems and creating a proper, sustainable future for rugby in Scotland. Money needs to be invested in every area of our sport, but I would make a special plea for support for the women's game and the grassroots across the board. In the end, Scotland's women crashed out of the World Cup with an expected heavy defeat by the host nation New Zealand. Yet, in their performances against Wales and Australia, Scotland showed that they have great courage and commitment and no little skill. They just need to move to the next level, and the way ahead is clear for the women themselves and for the Scottish Rugby Union. There must be serious investment in the women's national squad, and more full-time, fully professional contracts are necessary. There must be much greater investment in the women's game at the grassroots, and women must be encouraged to play a part in all sectors of the sport here, the example of international referee Holly Davidson being one to follow. Much of what I have said about the women's game applies to all of Scottish rugby. We are nowhere near getting over the pandemic, and no matter what people think or what they are told by craven politicians, COVID-19 is not a thing of the past. I would contend, for example, that while it may no longer be the law that people wear masks while attending rugby internationals, it might still be wise to do so, because the medical experts say that another wave of infections, possibly with a new variant, is just around the corner, and the joint coronavirus and flu vaccine has only been offered to the over 50s so far. I don't want to be a killjoy, but it would be disastrous if Murrayfield next month was to be the scene of a super spreader event. To repair the damage of COVID-19, we really need huge investment in our sport. And funnily enough, no one called me up to offer £1 billion after my suggestion last week. Maybe they thought I would just stick it on the first favourite at Musselburgh races. They might not have been wrong there, though I should point out I'm still counting my winnings on my bet that Rishi Sunak would become Prime Minister after Liz Truss. The way ahead for Scottish rugby is for the SRU not to gamble with the money it's got, but to take the lead and find money for investment. I hae my doubts that will happen, not least because I am still awaiting the anticipated private sector investment in Edinburgh Rugby and Glasgow Warriors announced some years ago. But when the governing body owns the two subsidiaries for what they are, and refuses to cede control over contracts and salaries, then no sane business professional is going to put a solitary sou, never mind millions of quids, into either club. I understand that the SRU is actively seeking various sources of investment, and let's face it, it would be bordering on criminal inaction if they were not doing so. This I do know, however, and that is the truism that nobody wants to be associated with failure at any level. Everyone involved in Scottish rugby must start thinking about something we are perfectly able to do but rarely achieve: winning consistently. Which brings me to this weekend's men's international against Australia. I contend that the Scottish men's national squad is on the brink of doing some remarkable stuff in the next 18 months or so, as we now have a squad that has strength and depth and proven winners in most positions. I don't want to get involved in the whole Gregor Townsend versus Finn Russell spat, but it does prove that we have options for the number 10 jersey, and I tend to believe that Finn was stood down for the reason Townsend implied: inconsistency. There's also Finn's own theories expounded in an interview with Mark Palmer of the Times last month. He's just turned 30, and with his partner Emma Canning expecting their first child next month, Finn says he won't be the one doing the drinking after matches, though he made an obvious implication against Townsend that the coach's job is to understand the players and know how to interact with them on an individual basis. Every player in the squad knows how important this game will be. Yes, we are missing key players because it's outside the international window, but those who will turn out on Saturday are perfectly capable of making it 4 wins in a row over the Wallabies. Then Scotland needs to do it all again up to and including the World Cup, says Martin Hannon. Evening Times Sport, October 26. Celtic's Matt O'Reilly in Premiership verdict. Report by Ewan Payton. Matt O'Reilly reckons if Celtic had created the chances they did against Shakhtar Donetsk on the domestic front, then they would have converted. The Hoops had various chances throughout the tie, as has been the case throughout their Champions League campaign. Through a mixture of good goalkeeping and poor finishing, the score was kept at 1-1 in Glasgow's East End. O'Reilly had one particular opportunity towards the dying moments of the encounter, with his shot going narrowly wide of the post. It proved to be a case of ruining the missed chances, which O'Reilly put down to a hint of anxiety. The Denmark under-21 international said, "It was a disappointing night and a disappointing Champions League campaign, especially considering the football we played. I am gutted for our fans because they turn up for every single game and make crazy amounts of noise and support. We'll try to be back next year with a bit more ruthlessness in front of goal. It is definitely hard to take. I had one at the end, and I think Jacko Giacomakis hits the post. To be honest, if that's in the Scottish League, I reckon we score them. Maybe it's just a bit of anxiety. I'm not sure. There's lots still to learn. We've just got to go back to the training ground and be ruthless with all of our little details. Our finishing and passing has got to be crisp, because when we transition into this level, it just needs to be a little bit sharper." Asked about the mental impacts of missing so many chances, O'Reilly added, "We cannot look into it too much when we're in the moment. You've just got to keep going. I think we did that, to be honest. We kept creating chances right until the very end. They just didn't go in today. Really frustrating. It's down to your mindset, really. We saw with Mudryk, he got one chance and he takes it. We had more chances in this game. They obviously had one massive chance, which they missed. However, I think we had plenty to punish them with. On the pitch, personally, I didn't really feel nervous or anxious. With that last shot, I've just got to hit it a bit cleaner and it goes in. It's fine margins. It's just been the story of our campaign." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 26. Rangers commission Walter Smith statue to be built outside Ibrox. Report by David Irvin. Rangers have announced a statue of Walter Smith has been commissioned to commemorate his achievements at the club. Ibrox Chiefs have authorised a statue to be built outside the stadium and revealed the plans on the first anniversary of the former manager's passing. Scottish football had united in mourning 1 year ago when it was confirmed Smith had passed away on October 26, aged 73. Now Rangers will pay tribute to Smith with a statue to be constructed outside the Copeland end at Ibrox. A statement on the club website confirmed. On the first anniversary of his passing, Rangers Football Club are today pleased to announce a statue of legendary manager Walter Smith has been commissioned to commemorate his incredible achievements at the club. In the modern era, nobody contributed more to Rangers than Walter. He served as assistant manager, and chairman, with his spells as manager yielding an incredible 10 top-flight titles, 5 Scottish Cups and 6 League Cups. A boyhood supporter who more than lived the dream, future generations will be met with this new sculpture at the famed Copeland Road end of Ibrox Stadium. A former Dundee United and Dumbarton defender, Smith was appointed manager at Ibrox in 1991, succeeding Graham Souness. He won 13 major trophies in 7 years, including 7 league titles in succession, before leaving at the end of the 1997-98 season and subsequently joining Everton. He stayed at Goodison Park for 4 seasons, before a brief stint as assistant manager to Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. Smith was appointed Scotland manager in December 2004 and was in charge for 3 years before returning to Rangers, where he won a further 8 trophies before retiring in 2011 after completing another domestic double. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, October 27. Australia first World Cup team to release players' statement criticising Qatar. Report by Benjamin Cooper. Australia has become the first World Cup finals side to release a collective statement from players criticising host Qatar's human rights record. Some 16 players, including former Arsenal and Brighton goalkeeper Matt Ryan, appear in the video in which they draw issue with the country's treatment of migrant workers and the LGBTQ+ community. Skipper Ryan said in his section of the statement, "There are universal values that should define football, values such as respect, dignity, trust and courage. When we represent our nation, we aspire to embody these values." Accusations over the treatment of migrant workers and a poor record of human rights have plagued the Gulf state, where same-sex relationships are criminalized. This has happened since it was controversially awarded this winter's finals back in 2010. The Australia video features players Jackson Irvine, Bailey Wright, Jamie McLaren, Nick D'Agostino, Craig Goodwin, Danny Vukovic, Andrew Redmayne, Matthew Leckie, Mitchell Duke, Mitch Langerak, Dennis Genroe, Cameron Devlin, Adam Targett, Kai Rose, and Alex Wilkinson, the President of Union Professional Footballers Australia, PFA. They acknowledged conditions have improved for workers in Qatar, in particular through the partial dismantling of the kafala system, which allowed employers to take workers' passports and block them from leaving the country. But as the players noted, the implementation of reforms remain inconsistent and requires improvement. The players said, "These migrant workers who have suffered are not just numbers. Like the migrants that have shaped our country and our football, they possess the same courage and determination to build a better life. Addressing these issues is not easy, and we do not have all the answers. We stand with FIFPro, the Building and Woodworkers International, and the International Trade Union Confederation, seeking to embed reforms and establish a lasting legacy in Qatar. This must include establishing a migrant resource centre, effective remedy for those who have been denied their rights, and the decriminalisation of all same-sex relationships. These are the basic rights that should be afforded to all and will ensure continued progress in Qatar. This is how we can ensure a legacy that goes well beyond the final whistle of the 2022 FIFA World Cup. It comes after former England striker Gary Lineker led criticism of Foreign Secretary James Cleverly for suggesting that LGBT football fans heading for the World Cup in Qatar should be respectful of the host nation. Cleverly urged fans to show a little bit of flex and compromise, and to respect the culture of your host nation, before Downing Street distanced itself from his comments. Responding to the politician's comments on Twitter, the Match of the Day presenter wrote, "Whatever you do, don't do anything gay. Is that the message?" Australia in June secured their fifth straight appearance at the World Cup finals by beating Peru on penalties in their qualifying play-off in Qatar. They will join defending champions France, Denmark and Tunisia in Group D at the tournament. Ryan and FC St Pauli midfielder Ivan, who has also played for Celtic and Hull, have previously flagged their own concerns about human rights in Qatar, but the video is the first by a side competing at the event. It was released along with a statement from governing body Football Australia and an open letter from PFA. Football Australia said, "As the most multicultural, diverse and inclusive sport in our country, we believe everyone should be able to feel safe and be their true, authentic selves. Whilst we acknowledge the highest levels of assurances given by HH Amir of Qatar and the President of FIFA that LGBTI plus fans will be safely welcomed in Qatar, we hope that this openness can continue beyond the tournament." Australian Josh Cavallo of Adelaide United is one of the highest profile players to have come out as gay, with Lineker earlier this month saying he wants to see a Premier League player come out during the Qatar World Cup to send a strong message to the hosts. Denmark's Football Association in November said it would introduce measures to highlight the human rights situation in Qatar, including limiting travel to the host nation to avoid promoting it. Denmark's kit manufacturer in September released 3 shirts, including a black strip, to honour migrant workers who died during construction for the tournament. Hummel said, "While we support the Danish national team all the way, this shouldn't be confused with support for a tournament that has cost thousands of people their lives." The hosts have disputed the number of lives lost, with its Qatar 2022 Supreme Committee responding, "We wholeheartedly reject the trivializing of our genuine commitment to protect the health and safety of migrant workers." The FA announced in September that England's Harry Kane will join counterparts from 8 other European nations, including Wales, in wearing a One Love rainbow anti-discrimination captain's armband during the tournament. Kane has said he will wear the armband even if it is prohibited by FIFA, with the Football Association of Wales saying it would accept any fines issued to Gareth Bale for doing the same. Meanwhile, calls for FIFA to contribute to a compensation scheme for migrant workers in Qatar has received strong public backing. Human rights campaign groups, including Amnesty International, have called on football's global governing body to set aside $440 million £380 million to support the scheme, equivalent to the amount it is set to hand out in World Cup prize money. Report by Benjamin Cooper. Evening Times Sport, October 27. Celtic and Rangers Champions League performance-related prize money revealed. Report by Darren Johnston. Celtic and Rangers have so far only banked a measly £1.6 million from the £29 million performance-related prize money that was up for grabs in the Champions League group stages. Glasgow's Big Two entered the lucrative stage of the competition, knowing they would land £2.4 million for every win, while £807,000 was at stake for any draws. So far, only Ange Postecoglou's side have taken advantage of the riches on offer, with 2 draws from their 5 games in Group F, while Rangers remain without a single point in what has been a chastening Group A experience. Rangers wrap up their campaign at home to Ajax next Tuesday, while Celtic travel to holders Real Madrid 24 hours later. Report by Darren Johnston. Evening Times Sport, October 27. Rangers provide positive Leon King injury update. Report by Aidan Smith. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has revealed that Leon King suffered cramp during last night's Champions League defeat to Napoli. The defender limped off in the 76th minute as Borna Barisic replaced him. There were initial fears that King could have picked up an injury, but Van Bronckhorst allayed those at full time, and he explained, "No, he got cramp. He's 18 years old. He's played almost every game at the highest level. We're really proud by the way he's performing at that age. But it's only cramp, so after a good rest between now and Saturday, I think he will be available." The Ibrox boss will be delighted that King does not have a serious injury, with somewhat of a defensive injury crisis brewing at the moment. John Souttar, Philip Helanda and Connor Goldson are all currently out with knocks, meaning Rangers are currently going with the experienced partnership of King and Ben Davis. Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, October 27. Van Bronckhorst praises Rangers' character. Report by Chris Jack. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst reckons Rangers showed their character despite slumping to a 5th successive Champions League defeat against Napoli. The Light Blues sit rock bottom of Group A after Giovanni Simeone hit a first-half brace and Leo Ostigard converted from a corner in the closing stages. Van Bronckhorst's side now face Ajax in their final fixture next week, but have a must-win Premiership clash with Aberdeen to contend with first and foremost this weekend. Van Bronckhorst said, "A defeat is a defeat, but the way we lost after 2 early goals in the first 15 minutes, I think we gave the goals too easily. 2 times it was 2 against 1 with our centre-backs, and I think the movement of the striker is excellent to go into the zones to be dangerous. I think after that we reacted really well. We stayed in the game and could have scored for 2-1 just before half-time with Morelos. Also, Malik had a chance to score. Second half, I think we showed character. We were well organised defensively and didn't give any big chances away. We were creating a lot of chances to score at 2-1, 2 big chances for Morelos. In the end, you concede the third goal by a set piece, but I think we can take a lot of positives from the game. Although it's a loss is still a loss." Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, October 28. The 5 striking Celtic home truths in Champions League return laid bare. Report by Aidan MacDonald. Celtic returned to the Champions League this season after a 5-year absence, and it has been a serious learning experience. The Hoops were drawn in a group with Real Madrid, RB Leipzig and Shakhtar Donetsk. Across their 5 fixtures so far, the boys have picked up 2 points out of a possible 15. Ange Postecoglou's men will be disappointed to have not taken more from the matches they have played. During every game, they did compete at times. However, a variety of factors means they will not be playing European football after Christmas. Scoring 3 goals and conceding 10, the Parkhead side has had mixed fortunes overall. The campaign has seen them give a good account of themselves against Los Blancos in a 3-0 loss. What followed was a 1-1 draw in Warsaw against the Ukrainians, followed up by back-to-back defeats to the Germans, which all but ended any hopes of playing European football at the start of next year. The final nail in the coffin came when Donetsk came to Parkhead and repeated the result of the reserve fixture. It may be looked back on a missed opportunity for Postecoglou's side when the group stages come to an end with a trip to the Bernabeu. Here are 5 things that we learned from the boys' Champions League campaign. 1. A lack of clinical edge. One thing that has plagued Celtic throughout their time in Group F has been their inability to take their chances. Several times during the 5 matches, the Hoops have had enough chances to score more than the 3 goals they have to their name. A lack of clinical edge has really hurt, with chances such as Dazen Maida's point-blank range effort at home to Real Madrid and Georgios Giacomokas' mishit away to Shakhtar Donetsk, key examples of moments that could have changed games. Up until the start of their European campaign, the Scottish champions had been scoring goals for fun. However, this did not translate to their games on the biggest stage. The Parkhead side would be in a much better position had they taken even a few of their many opportunities. 2. Home struggles continue. Before the start of this season, Celtic were without a win at home in the Champions League group stages since 2013. That is a gruelling stat that still remains the same and will do so for at least another year. 2 defeats and a draw make up the Hoops' 2022 contribution to what was already a miserable record. 9 years without achieving 3 points in a group stage game at Parkhead is a far cry from the days when the East End of Glasgow was viewed among the toughest place for opposition teams in Europe to play. The caveat must be made that there were 5 years that they did not qualify during that time period, but it will still make for sober reading for supporters of the club. The fixtures against RB Leipzig and Shakhtar Donetsk will be looked back on as chances missed to try and break this record. 3. Defensive woes. A similar problem that the Scottish champions have stumbled across in recent years in European competition was present again this term, and that was troubles at the back. The tendency to lose one goal quickly after another could be seen against Los Blancos, as after Vinicius Jr. put the Spanish side in front, Luka Modric made it 2-0 less than 4 minutes later. A lack of concentration when playing the ball out from a defensive standpoint was another issue that Postecoglou's men experienced. The prime example of this was over in Germany, when Joe Hart played the ball directly to opposition forward Andre Silva, who dispatched the ball past him with ease. It effectively killed off any chance Celtic had of getting back into the game, and rendered the Hoops' hard work up until then as pointless. 4. Postecoglou's style of play can work at the highest level. On a slightly more positive note, it is clear that the way the manager wants his team to play stands up to the toughest of challenges. While the results in Group F have been far from ideal overall, the team have competed in all of the fixtures. It is unfair to blame the results on the Ange Ball method of attacking play. On the contrary, Postecoglou's tactics are a large part of the reason the team created as many chances during the games. If Celtic had simply sat back and played defensive football, it could be argued it would have had little difference on the final results in the group. Given how well the Hoops pressed at times, the Australian would have been happy with how they equipped themselves for the most part, albeit with reward in the results department. The majority of the time they were brave on the ball and looking to pass forward, which is exactly what he would have wanted. 5. Jota is Champions League quality. The Portuguese winger may be out injured right now, but in the 3 games he played in the competition before his knock, he left a good impression. Against Real Madrid, he caused a world-class defence problems and showed he was not scared to face up to the best football has to offer. On match day 2, he was one of the best players on the pitch, and even though he was unable to drive the team to victory, he took the game by the scruff of the neck. His frustrations at full time, and the fact he felt a personal responsibility for the game ending in a draw, demonstrates his elite mentality. In what will likely be his final Champions League appearance of the season, he scored away to RB Leipzig with a great finish, and it was a moment he deserved. Report by Aidan MacDonald. Evening Times Sport, October 28. The badge demands it. Greg Taylor insists Celtic will treat Livingston trip in same manner as Real Madrid test. Report by David Irvin. Greg Taylor insists Celtic will treat Livingston with the same respect as Real Madrid because the badge demands it. The Scotland fullback has experienced difficult away games against Shakhtar Donetsk, RB Leipzig, and he and his teammates are gearing up for a trip to the Bernabeu next week. But Taylor has offered assurances there will be no change in preparation for the visit to West Lothian, as he admitted the Livingston encounter is arguably as big a match as that against the Champions League holders next Wednesday. The badge demands it. It is as simple as that. It does, said Taylor, of the importance of every match, regardless of taking on Europe's elite or domestic competition. You will see the fans when we go to Livingston. It will be like a home game for us, and they will be cheering us on from minute 1 until 90. With the way that Europe has fallen for us this year, we want to give them something to cheer about domestically. Livingston have shown that throughout their time in the Premiership they have got a good way of playing, and they stick to it whilst all playing for each other. So we all know it is going to be difficult, but it's a game a lot of us now have experience of, and when you get that experience of occasions domestic or Champions League, it does help. Every game is big at a club this size, and Sunday is no different, because Livingston away is a difficult game. It is a game we will approach in the same way as we do every game, treating our opposition with the utmost respect and aiming to put on a performance. While Celtic have struggled to earn results in the Champions League, there have been many positives to take from the performance levels achieved against high-calibre opposition. And for Taylor, if Celtic can replicate their performances from European nights when on league duty, then it will be more than good enough to keep up their title ambitions. Detailing his hopes for a statement performance on top of another positive result in the Scottish Premiership, the defender said, "If we can reach the levels we have reached in the Champions League, we will be pretty all right in the league stuff and domestic games, because the level of performance needed to compete at Champions League level is really, really high. It is the best competition in the world, but Sunday is now the big one. Livingston has been a tough place to go throughout the years, and they will be wanting to get a result. Equally, we want to do more than get a result. We also want to put on a performance for the fans." Taylor has echoed a positive stance on European learning as that of Celtic boss Ange Postecoglou, as he remains similarly determined to continue to improve on the continent. It's been difficult in terms of pure scorelines, with just 2 points to show for their efforts after 5 outings in the competition. But Taylor is confident Celtic have proven they're not far off achieving significant results in the Champions League. However, he would not agree that too much was expected from his side in their return to the European top table, as he demanded Celtic achieve success on every front, not just in Scotland. "I wouldn't say so, no," said Taylor, when quizzed on whether expectations were too lofty before the Champions League kicked off. "When you play for Celtic, the club deserves success at every level, and Europe is no different. We have come up short, ultimately, but I think the fans can see in our performance that we're not far away. A lot of the boys who are experiencing this for the first time, myself included, will be more equipped and ready to go if we get a second crack at it. I think you can see in level of performance that we are not far away. We have handled these occasions, which are big ones. You can see 60,000 inside the stadium wanting success for the team, And, of course, it does show that we're not far away. It gives you the incentive to do it again. It is unbelievable. It improves you as a player. You feel as though you're getting better, albeit it is difficult to learn by not getting results we want, but it does make you want it more. It's been somewhat of a landmark season for Taylor, both on a club and a personal level. With the club back in the Champions League, and Postecoglou desperate to earn back-to-back league triumphs, much was made of the need for reinforcements at left-back. But Taylor has nailed his spot in the team with a meteoric rise in form after adapting to Postecoglou's inverted wing-back system. But he's not interested in giving himself a pat on the back, as he insisted he's just determined to keep improving and take nothing for granted. "I'll leave that to other people to decide," he said, on the suggestion of playing some of the best football of his career. "I just try and improve every day, and I have a manager who believes in me with a philosophy that I enjoy playing in." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, October 28. Chris Sutton details various stormy encounters after making BT Sport criticisms. Report by Aidan Smith. Chris Sutton has revealed a stormy encounter with Neil Lennon after he had criticised the former Celtic boss on BT Sport. The altercation came after Sutton slated the at the time Hoops boss as his team slumped and lost out on 10 in a row to Rangers. The pair had been close during their time as players, and this resulted in Lennon taking serious offence. Speaking on BT Sports' Curry Club podcast, Sutton revealed, "It wasn't difficult. You can only say what is in front of you, but there's always the nagging feeling in the stomach. Neil was a great mate of mine. We played together for 4 years at Celtic. I used to sit next to him in the dressing room. My wife chats to Neil's wife. For example, when my son James was born at 28 weeks, Neil came in the next morning to visit my wife and little James, who wasn't well. He showed great support in that particular time. We used to go out together as teammates, as a lot of us did. That particular team was a band of brothers. I've spoken to Neil about this. Neil was a broadcaster as well, and a really good broadcaster. I think he understands the game in that respect. He will be critical of managers and players. He wasn't happy with me, and he made that very clear. We walked down after the match and had to leave through a certain exit due to COVID, and as we were walking down, Neil had turned the corner to walk up. I said, "All right, Neil," and he said nothing. From Neil's point of view, I totally got that because of the pressure. He was the Celtic manager, and those COVID times were an absolute nightmare to manage in, because of the way the crowd can really lift the team, and not having that was really difficult for him. But the performances at that particular time were not there. Now time has healed things a little bit, and everybody realised what a brilliant servant he was. He might look back in years to come and think that I was actually right, but knowing Neil, meanwhile, Sutton has also revealed awkward changes between Lee Griffiths and Craig Gordon after he called the pair out live on air. Sutton called out Griffiths for his physical condition and also took aim at goalkeeper Gordon for a slip-up in form during his time at the Hoops. On Griffiths, he said, "It was quite an interesting show of pettiness. You come down here. No, you come up here." That was how it started. He was really angry. I was critical of his physical condition. Don't forget Lee Griffiths was such an important player at Celtic, a brilliant natural goal-scorer. I thought he'd let himself go, and I wasn't the only one thinking that. I said it. He took offence. But I stand by what I said, and I told him that. I get it. I played, and you don't take criticism well. Lee's a passionate guy. He wanted to vent his frustration, and I said to him that the best way to do that was to get himself fit enough to become an asset to the team. On Gordon, Sutton added, "I felt his form had dipped a bit at Celtic. He was always a good keeper, but there was a game in the League Cup against Alloa where he came out and should have been sent off for what I described as a Hong Kong foo kick, and he just lost a little bit of confidence at that time. I was critical of him, and then I was covering a Dundee United versus Celtic game, and I always fly back to Norwich or Stansted, so I was in the tiny lounge at Dundee Airport. There was no one else there. Then Craig Gordon walked in. He'd spoken about the criticism I'd given him, so we were at war. We sat looking at each other, and then he was sitting next to me on the plane. I gave him my view, and he was fine. That's the whole point of prepping and backing your opinion." Sutton also believes a column he wrote branding Rangers captain James Tavernier a serial loser, and that has resulted in him being knocked back from Ibrox on several occasions. The Celtic hero has been refused entry on European nights when BT Sport are broadcasting from the stadium. Although Sutton has never been officially banned, he reckons his refusal of entry stems from a column he wrote about Tavernier. "I called him that when he hadn't won anything at that particular time. I was factual at that time. I have got great admiration for James Tavernier and the way he has played for the last number of seasons, and for the way he's captained Rangers. They demolished Celtic by 25 points, and last season he did brilliantly to take Rangers to a Europa League final. I can't call him a serial loser now. He's answered the best way. But are we really going to get offended by little snippets like that? I've not heard James Tavernier say anything about this. He's done exactly as he should do, and I have total admiration for him and the way he's conducted himself and how he's dragged the Rangers team up to a level where they are a real force back in Glasgow now. I don't know which things I've said, which Rangers don't like. The easiest thing would be for someone to give me a call and say, 'We don't like that,' or 'You've said this or that.' It's not for me to resolve." Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, October 28. Frank McAvenny makes Celtic referee claim. Report by Aidan Smith. Frank McAvenny has slated VAR, claiming the new video technology will not help Celtic to get better decisions moving forward. The refereeing aid was brought in last weekend, and after a quiet debut at Easter Road for Hibs versus St Johnstone, it was thrust into life as Hearts took on Celtic at Tynecastle. Ange Postecoglou was visibly frustrated on the touchline as his team were denied a penalty when the ball hit defender Michael Smith inside the box. McAvenny insists his former side are up against it in every match with regard to referees and their decisions. He told Football Insider, "It has happened for years. When I played, the gaffer used to say we will get nothing off the referee. It is going way back. There is no way it is a coincidence. It does not matter that VAR is in. Against Hearts, Smith stopped the ball with his hand and we got nothing. And that is with VAR. It is just not right. I get how the referees can miss things, but not the people watching it. The whole world saw it was a penalty. It is just a laughing stock. I just find it strange that we have not had any, especially with the amount of attacking play that they have got. There would be one or two." Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, October 28. Steven Gerrard Aston Villa dressing room leaks. Detail claim players were not having him. Report by Aidan Smith. West Ham striker Michail Antonio has claimed that a portion of the current Aston Villa squad were not having Steven Gerrard as their manager. The Liverpool legend was axed as boss last week in the aftermath of Villa's 3-0 defeat at Fulham. The club had collected just 9 points from their opening 11 matches and only lay above the relegation zone on goals scored. Since then, Unai Emery has been appointed, and Villa picked up a convincing win over Brentford in the Premier League. Antonio appeared on the Footballers' Football podcast and claimed that the Villa dressing room was not in full harmony. He said, "Honestly, what I've heard on the grapevine is that there were a few players who were not really having him. I'm not sure how many there were, but what I heard is that a few players were not really having him and didn't like how he was. It wasn't how he wanted to play. It was more how he was as a manager himself and how he dealt with the players. That's what I heard." Newcastle striker Callum Wilson detailed how defender Tyrone Mings was stripped of captaincy as another example of Gerrard's management. He added, "Those kinds of situations can have a snowball effect and not for a positive. It's gone negative. When you see the news of that come up, you're a bit taken aback by it as well. I think it was a bit harsh, especially with Mings, who was in the England setup at the time. But that's a decision a manager makes, and he stands by that. And if you ask Gerrard, he'd probably say he wouldn't change that decision. I guess you make your bed and you lie in it, and at the end of the day, it wouldn't have been that got him the sack. Overall, it was the performances. But then, I think the attackers were not scoring enough goals. Then the manager would come out in the media and say they weren't scoring, and this and that." Report by Aidan Smith. Evening Times Sport, October 28. Tavernier makes Van Bronckhorst declaration as pressure mounts on Ibrox manager. Report by Matthew Lindsay. James Tavernier has stated the Rangers players remain firmly behind their manager Giovanni Van Bronckhorst in the wake of a Champions League defeat to Napoli, which has increased the pressure on the Dutchman. Tavernier and his teammates were beaten 3-0 by the Serie A leaders in Naples on Wednesday night and remain rooted to the bottom of Group A without any points. The Ibrox club have to draw with or beat Ajax and Govan in their final match on Tuesday night to avoid a whitewash, and if they lose by 2 goals or more, they will finish their campaign with the worst group stage record in the 30-year history of Europe's premier club competition. Many supporters have been deeply unhappy with the Glasgow club's form at home and abroad in the 2022-23 campaign, and would like to see a change in the dugout. However, their captain has stressed that he and his fellow players are continuing to give their all for Van Bronckhorst, who has lost a raft of key men due to injuries this term, and must accept their share of responsibility for disappointing displays and results at home and abroad. He said, "We are always behind the manager. Never once are we not. We have full belief in his tactics, and whatever he puts out on match day, it is down to us as a team, as players, to go out and put a performance in for him and the fans. There have been a few games where it has not been good enough, and we have accepted that as a team. We cannot let that lapse into our game. Against Napoli, we never hid away from it. We went toe-to-toe with them as best as we could, and tried to play our football and create our chances. As long as we do the minimum and the basics, put the effort in, and really go toe-to-toe with opponents, I am sure the fans will take to that. We have to finish on a high with a win over Ajax. It is the final game at home in front of our fans, so we have got to put in a really big performance for them. We never go into a game to lose, but if you're going to lose, you have to leave everything out on the pitch, and I felt we left everything out on the pitch on Wednesday night. It is those small margins which make a difference. You have to put the ball in the back of the net." John Lundstrom was ruled out of the game against Ajax next week when he picked up a booking against Napoli on Wednesday night, and Tavernier acknowledged the English midfielder will be a huge loss to his side. However, the defender feels that every player who has been drafted into the Rangers team due to suspensions and injuries has risen to the challenge, and is confident they have the strength and depth they need to cope without Lundstrom. And he said, "We have got a squad. You can see the boss rotating and people coming in. That is what they are there for. Everyone tries to push each other. Everyone who is asked to start tries to put in a performance for the team and give a good account of themselves. James put in a great performance for us in centre mid the other night. That is what it takes. Anyone who is wanting to come into the team has to look at that performance that James put in and carry it out." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, October 31. Yuki Kobayashi Celtic transfer latest. Report by Ewan Payton. Celtic are reportedly close to sealing their 1st January signing. Reports in Japan claim that Yuki Kobayashi will sign for Postecoglou's side when the window opens in the new year. The 22-year-old would become the 5th player from the J-League to sign for the Hoops since Postecoglou's arrival last summer. Kyogo, Ryo Hatate, Daisen Maeda, and Yoshiki Ideguchi are all on the books at the Scottish champions, with Postecoglou clearly a huge fan of the Japanese market. Now it appears that Kobayashi will join Celtic's strong Japan contingent. It is reported in Japan the 22-year-old will sign on the dotted line officially in January, and it is said a fee has been agreed with Vissel Kobe for the left-sided defender. The report states, according to multiple sources, a formal offer has already arrived and an agreement has been reached between the clubs. Kobayashi himself seems to have decided to take on his first overseas challenge and plans to sign a formal contract after undergoing a medical check on site. He has been attracting attention since he was in Kobe's academy, and in May 2016, at the age of 15 years and 9 months, he was registered for 2 top teams. He has continued to grow steadily since then, and made his top debut in April 2018 at the age of 17 years and 8 months. In 2019, he skipped a grade and was selected as the under-21 Japan representative of the Tokyo Olympics generation. Known for his precise left foot and build-up ability, the Celtic team are also said to appreciate Kobayashi's ability and potential. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 31. Jota thanks Celtic fans. Report by Graham McGarry. Jota has thanked the Celtic fans for the rousing ovation they gave him as he returned from injury against Livingston, and has vowed to do everything he can on the pitch to repay them for their support. The winger came off the bench in the 80th minute to huge applause from the large travelling support at the Tony Macaroni Arena, and promptly won a penalty that Giacomakis missed before rounding off the 3-0 win by tapping home from David Turnbull's cross. He says that there is more to come from him now that he is back to full fitness, and he will be doing his utmost to give the Celtic fans more to cheer about in the coming weeks and months. He said, "I think this shows what Celtic is all about, and the support we have every time we play, either at Celtic Park or away. After this support, we just have to show ourselves on the pitch and fight for them. It was a very important moment for me coming back from injury, but most of all it was about the victory for the team. This was a game that we knew was going to be very difficult, like every season, every time we come here, but I was very happy to get the win." The goal and the win rounded off a positive week for Jota, as he was named in Portugal's provisional 55-man list for the World Cup in Qatar. He said, "That's a very good moment for me and for my family. I'm just grateful for everything that is going on. 2 years ago I was not even playing for any club. I was at a club, of course, but I wasn't having many minutes. 2 years later, to be on the 55-man list is something very good for me, but this is just another step. I just need to keep working and enjoying it on the pitch, and everything will come naturally. You cannot just be obsessed with those kind of things. I wake up every day with the mentality of being a better person and a better football player and building a strong base to be better." Meanwhile, Jota says that he will be ready if called upon by Ange Postecoglou to start against Real Madrid on Wednesday night. And he said, "That's not a question for me, that's a question for the gaffer. If he is ready to put me in, I am ready to fight for him, for the team and for the club. So that is up to him." Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, October 31. Morelos in Key to Our Success message. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers star Alfredo Morelos has posted a message on social media thanking God following his first goal in 8 games. It has been a tricky season so far for the Colombian striker. The 26-year-old has been the talisman for the Ibrox outfit during his time in Glasgow. However, due to a mixture of injury, fitness and attitude issues, Morelos has yet to really make an impact on the club so far in the 22-23 campaign. He has found himself behind Antonio Cholak in the pecking order for Van Bronckhorst's side. The Croat has fired in 14 goals to date since joining from PAOK in the summer. Morelos did score upon his injury return in August against Kilmarnock, when he netted as a late substitute in the match. However, since then, a red card against Hibs and questions surrounding his fitness and application have overshadowed his season. That said, Morelos did manage to work his way back into Van Bronckhorst's plans in October. The attacker scored against Hearts in an away win at Tynecastle. His performance against Napoli last midweek again attracted plenty of criticism, and this led to him being back on the bench for the visit of Aberdeen on Saturday. But he did eventually find the net after coming on as a substitute, sticking the ball in at the far post after a Fashion Sakala cross. Now he has taken to his Instagram story to post a message after scoring his first in 8 matches. Morelos posted an image with the words which translate to "Never leave God out of your projects. He is the key to success." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, October 31. Ian McCall insists Partick Thistle are not doing the dirty work well enough. Report by Aidan MacDonald. Partick Thistle manager Ian McCall has insisted his players are not doing the dirty work well enough after the Jags' 3-0 defeat to Raith Rovers. The result means the Firhill club remain 5th in the Scottish Championship, 4 points adrift of league leaders Ayr United, and the Jags boss cannot hide his frustration. He said, "To be honest, Raith Rovers could have scored more in the first half. They looked like they could score every time they went up the park. We were better in the second 45, but overall, Rovers were deserved winners. 2 weeks ago we were top of the league, but confidence has just been sapped away for some of the players. It was not good enough, and I felt for our supporters." The Maryhill club have now conceded 15 goals in their last 4 games, and McCall continued, "We are going through a period where every long shot ends up in the top corner, and deflections end up as own goals. Players are playing right now like we are flying, similar to how we were a few weeks ago, but we are not. You need to dig in and do the dirty work, which we are not doing at the moment."
And that was this week's Glasgow Times Sport podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes with the publisher's kind permission. Thanks for listening.